apologies for last week and the hiccups then. The panel tonight is Chris Zonk and myself. Shane Connolly can't make it. And I'd like to acknowledge two people who were at the last session 2 years ago. One was John Easton, who was the chairman of our National NEA committee at that stage and was and is still on the National Safety Committee. He stepped back and his place has been taken by Shane Connolly. John is still on the National Safety Committee, but Shane Connolly has taken over his role. So I'd like to acknowledge John's effort over the last 7 years in doing that. Also, Tim Cox, who was with us 2 years ago, was my predecessor as New South Wales NEA and had a lot to do with setting all this up. So very sadly, Tim died in April. So I'd like to acknowledge Tim and his contribution to it over the years as well. Our focus tonight is on category 4 to 7 audits and the auditing process. You'll find if you were at the session 2 years ago that there's a certain amount of overlap there, and that's on purpose because I'm very keen on having a consistent auditing process across the country. Also, we'll be looking at the auditing process. I don't want to get into debating the Blue Book and the rules in there because that's not our role. That's the National Safety Committee determines those. And while we can definitely have input into that, our role is really to help skippers and to help the people in the sport comply with those and be as safe as they can. So let's not have any debates on those. And so on to the session itself. First thing I want to talk about is some of the resources available. So if we go on the next slide, Mel, we've gone the next one up. Okay, the panel tonight I've spoken about, Chris Zonk, myself and Shane. Okay, resource available, the audit process, new audit forms, insurance cover and training and career accreditation. And by the way, if you want copies of this presentation, please get in contact with one of the three of us and I'm sure I'll be happy to send it across to you. And you're very welcome to use it at your club or talking to skippers or to other auditors at any time. So let's click to the next one, please, Mel. Okay, I'd like to, a couple of things that you should be aware of, but just in case you're not, is the Safety Hub. These are all on the Australian Sailing webpage and the Equipment and Auditing Resources page. So Mel, can you click on the Safety Hub? Does that come up here on? Okay, it's come up somewhere. Can we bring it up on the page at all? Ah, there we are. Okay. You should be familiar with this, and I'd recommend you take a little bit of time to go through it. So if you just scroll down a little bit there, there's safety induction, classroom special regulations, safety information notices, equipment auditing, the process itself, and the safety committee. So I won't go into those here. There's major incident reports and a number of other things. I'd recommend you take the time to have a look through that and come back to it fairly regularly because new information is posted there as a fairly regular thing. So that's one resource which is there for us. Okay, Mel, can we go to the other one? Equipment Auditing Resources page. This is critical for us. Fabulous. Okay, just scroll a little there. The latest equipment audit forms are there. I'll mention this as we get a little bit further, but we should be using, there's new forms came out this week and Chris, I think you're talking about that a little further on. Not this week, sorry, this month it was. Last month, okay. Forms available for download. We should be using the most recent form there at all times. And they change fairly regularly. So if your club's in the habit of printing them out like mine is, just do a check every now and then to make sure you got the most recent ones and they're up to date there. People are using the most up to date ones. There's a number of frequently asked questions. Fine and order, you probably shouldn't need that. Let's scroll down a little bit on that page, Mel. Okay, becoming an equipment auditor. And then the equipment auditing policies. Again, if you can take a little bit of time to read about that, the ones I'd like to highlight there is responsibility of the person in charge and trivial non-compliance. So if we click on responsibilities of the person, click on one of those, person in charge. Our role is to help people comply with the rules and to be as safe as they can. It's an advisory role. I mean, we are signing off forms, but it's in my opinion, our largest role is helping skippers to become aware and become compliant with these. And I'll just read this out to you because it is very important. It says, where judgment is required to audit the compliance of an equipment auditor shall primarily rely on the opinion of the person in charge of the boat. The auditor may still decline to complete the audit, and I would recommend don't sign things off that you're unhappy with. But in the event that you decline to complete the audit, you should note the reasons on the audit form why you declined that. At the end of the day, the person in charge and the people in the boat are the ones who are going to have to live with it. We, by all means, can decline to sign it, but they're the ones who are going to have to live with it. So that's their responsibility. So again, just to say, don't sign it if you're not happy with it, but don't get into arguments, pass it up the chain. And if you decline to sign it, put down the reasons on the form. Okay, just if you can click us back on that other one, Mel. Okay, back in the auditing resources page again. Okay, let's go down. There's one of the policies there. Just go down a little bit. Okay. Trivial non-compliance in an audit. Can you click the one up, please? Fabulous. Okay. This is where you do an audit, and there's a couple of fairly minor things. You can't tick off everything. It says trivial compliance means the risk of an incident due to non-compliance are low in likelihood and impact, or the non-compliance has no meaningful impact on the safety of the boat and the crew. The auditor has sole discretion to decide whether it's trivial or not, and may consider the opinion of the person in charge in making that decision. So it's your decision as the auditor. They should note the trivial non-compliance. There's a section on the form for non-compliances, and should be addressed as soon as reasonably practical. So in that case, I would still sign off the form, but I'd note in the items outstanding what the non-compliances are. You may still decline to complete the audit. That's up to you. But if you do, again, note the reasons on there. And the examples down the bottom, there might be out-of-date discipline, there might be stanchions that exceed the maximum spacings by only a small distance. There may be minor things that you consider minor. You can't completely sign off the form, but I would still sign it, but note those items on there. Okay, can we go back to the presentation now? Right, that's resources. Next page, the audit process. Right, you know this, I know, but let me run through it again. We're there to assist the owner or the person in charge to get their boat ready to sail or race. Be courteous, helpful, and knowledgeable. And part of our role is to be a source of knowledge and to help them become compliant and safe. Avoid arguing. Pass on up the chain to another auditor if the owner or person in charge disagrees with it. That might be someone else at your club. It might be someone at another club. It might be back to someone like Chris or myself. But don't sign the audit form until it's complete. That's, again, your prerogative. You should only sign it when you're comfortable. Bearing in mind, you might note a couple of non-compliances on there and sign it. And new wording on the audit declaration means any outstanding audits can now be signed off by another audit. And most important, down the bottom there, be on the lookout for auditor shop. There's been a couple of cases in the last year. I was actually unfortunately involved in one where people were looking for another auditor because they didn't like the first auditor they came to. If it becomes obvious to you that another auditor has declined to complete the audit, declined to sign it off, don't get involved. Pass it back to them. Try to understand why they're looking at it. If the other auditor is not available, that's probably a good reason. If the other auditor is available and they just don't like their opinions, that's not a good reason. So we're getting a few cases of that, unfortunately, where people are looking around to try and find who, in their opinion, is the easiest auditor, and we should not be encouraging that. All right, next slide, please, Mel. Responsibility person in charge. Okay, we read through that, so we can probably skip over that page, but it is important. Okay, next one. Valid dates for audit. This has been for a little while now. Audit forms are valid for 12 months from the date of audit. Individual clubs may change that, but yeah, they may require different dates. But the audit forms we sign off, the Australian sailing forms, are from the date of audit itself. Okay, next one, please, Mel. Right, audit forms themselves. As I said, there's a new set of forms on the website. Please don't alter the forms, or don't encourage auditing the forms. Make sure you get the latest ones. And if you've got club-specific forms for additional requirements, and if you can click on that one, Mel, that's for my own club, Middle Harbour. We've had one of these for years, and it's on our website. This is additional requirements that we require above and beyond what's on the audit form. So a lot of clubs have that. In our case, it covers the requirements for sailing on Sydney Harbour and a few other requirements we think are important. Your club might have different ones to those. By all means, have a different form, but don't alter, please, the Australian sailing forms themselves. All right, if you feel like having a look at that, you're welcome to. Of course, it's on the Middle Harbour thing, or when you get the presentation, you can click onto it. All right, let's go to the next one, Mel. Insurance cover. This was a big issue 2 years ago. I think most people are fairly happy with it now. But if you're auditing on behalf of Australian Sailing, you're covered by the Australian Sailing Insurance Policy. So long as you're acting within your competence and authority, And if they want to come back and try and sue you, or there's an unfortunate incident, you are covered by the Australian sailing insurance policy. And that was a big issue a couple of years ago. I hope it's gone away now, but a number of us were not comfortable at that stage that we were covered in case something went wrong. All right, let's go to the next one. Training and accreditation. Okay, this changed a little while back. I think most people are familiar with it, but just to go over it again, new club equipment auditors, they're in the online course, no applications required. They're accredited for 4 years from the time Australian sailing approval is received. So the process, a number of you I know will have gone through this, is to have gone through the course, to apply to gone through the course and to get that certification. And of course, we're all Australian sailing auditors now. We're not specifically club auditors. So we're able to work to audit on for other clubs and in other states even if necessary. Reaccreditation, when the 4 years is up, you need to go through the course, again, the online course, and read and acknowledge the special regulations update. So you don't even need to do the whole course, although I would recommend it just to remind yourself. But you need to go in and read and acknowledge the special regulations update document within that course. No applications required. So when your 4 years are up, please just get online, book an online course and run through it. For those who want to go on to be national equipment auditors and do categories 1 and 2, they need to have completed the CEA online course, and there's a 1-day course for experienced CEAs. I would recommend you've had a while as a CEA first. 1-day course which we'll run through, and we're just looking at scheduling another one of those later on this year. The last one was 2 years ago, and there's a few people interested. So if you're interested, please drop a note to Melanie, Chris, or myself, and we'll tee you up for that when it's scheduled. All right, next one, please, Mel. I'll hand over to this to Chris, and we'll talk through recent updates in key items. So, Chris, over to you, mate.
Okay, thank you very much, Phil. I've got a few interesting ones here for us to deal with, and for anyone who supports New South Wales, I'm sorry, but we won't go there. So my part of this of the presentation tonight is about charts and lifelines and tethers, etc., what it says on there, and we'll try to go through this relatively quickly. There is a fair bit, there can be a fair bit in it, but I mean, it's just a matter of us keeping on top of it. Electronic navigation systems, commercially supplied packages. So just the primary things that we need to be mentioning or talking to the whoever's in charge of the boat is that these charts are generally geographically restricted. So you must make sure that they have charts for the area that we're dealing with and can load charts for the area it's dealing with. So that's things that you sort of should be asking people. Organising authorities may also have specific charts that they need to supply. Another commercial packages often include, well, should all include an update service. So again, the people need to be aware of this update service and potentially be able to explain to you how they get it. Now, I don't expect us to be all experts in different charting systems, so it's not up to us to know for sure, but as long as they show us that they have some idea. OAs obviously can request specific charts. Paper charts now are becoming very difficult, if you can even get them. So paper charts are virtually no longer being produced. So some still are, but not many. Types of charts that can be that are available are ENC and CMAP. Personally, I've been finding that the ENC charts are more useful and contain a lot more information, but CMAP is also quite good, so they can use any of those things. The other thing about just with these charting systems, you need to have a capable navigator or someone who understands the operation and functionality of the nav system. It's actually becoming quite, well, it is quite specialised, and the owner may not have an idea of it, but you should have someone who's specifically on board who can do the navigation. One of the other things that we're looking for is independent power supplies, which is again can vary for each boat. So the idea would be what sort of backup systems do they have? Most nav systems are on laptop computers. You know, if you're losing power, the system will eventually discharge. So what other alternatives they can have? So if they've got a tablet or some other type of device, it's got to be well enough protected so it can handle the weather and potentially have some other sort of backup system. They can also have, like charts built into the actual onboard ship's navigation, a ship's instrument system. So BNG with a chart plotter or something like that gives another backup to what we have, and hopefully it's on a separate battery system. So these are just the sort of questions you would have to ask people. So if we just, that's basically charts in a nutshell. It's really just making sure that they have an understanding of where their charts are and how they obtain them and how they would back them up. So these are the sort of questions you would need to ask people about this stuff. If we jump to the next one, Mel. The next thing is new with the new Lifeline material. Not new, it's been around for a while, but the use of HMPE Lifeline materials. First thing is, how do we identify it? So there's a couple of things that we could have here. It can be single braid or double braid. And it's generally, to identify it, obviously, most of us have seen Dyneema and Spectra, but it tends to be like you can see on the thing. Dyneema can be a grey colour or blue when it's single braid. Relatively slippery to hold in your hand, but so looking to identify it in that way. Things about Dyneema and Spectra, if they're not braided, it's double braided. If the single braided Dyneema will, after about 2 years, will be down to about 50% strength. So something to just bring up to them. So after about 24 months, these things can downgrade in strength to up to 50%. Double braided, probably after 2 years, will only drop about 20 to 40%. So it is somewhat more resilient in the sun. So it's things that they should know about. When we're looking at joining or how to terminate these things, for single braid, you should be looking at a buried locking splice. So rather than just a straight bury. So if you have a look at where the Dyneema is being terminated, if you look for if you're looking for some form of a locking splice, you'll see that it has the rope seems to go through itself, which is one sort of bit of an identifying factor that it's actually a locking type splice, and then it will come back through and bury. So, and the bury needs to be quite significant. So if you read the manufacturer's stuff, it should be up to 50 times the diameter, but I don't know how many times people will go to that depth. So to do those sorts of splices, just about anyone who has a bit of a read at it and has a play could actually do them and do them properly. But the big thing we would need to be looking at is if it's been done professionally, they should be able to tell you. If they've done it themselves, just ask them about how they've done it and how much bury they have. If they're using double braid, the splicing is far more complicated and probably should always be done by someone with experience. I wouldn't recommend owners try and do double braid, and you can identify if it's been done relatively well because a double braid splice will be quite stiff where they bury it. So, you can sort of have a bit of a fiddle and make some sort of a decision about whether it's been done right. The replacement cycle, like I said, down at around about 2 years, it's down to 50%. Other things that they should be looking at is single braid is probably is going to be more susceptible to wear, and you'll find that it'll chafe around where it goes through stanchions, especially if those stanchions have had wire in them in the past. They may have rough edges. So just get them to be aware or have a look yourself to see what sort of damage is happening where they go through the stanchions. So, but looking maybe at a 2 to 3 year cycle to replace these things. It's not as long. Longevity is not as good as wire, I wouldn't think, but I mean, we'll have to see how it pans out. But I would be recommending around about 2 years. Anyway, that's Lifeline materials. We step on to our next one, which is tethers and hooks. So basically at this point in time, we are allowing allowing the existing tethers to be still used, existing clips to be still used. But the recommendation is that they switch. Currently, our recommendation is that we switch to sidewall strengthened type clips. I have actually been working with on an Australian Standards Committee over the last 12 months who've been looking at the Australian Standard 12401, and it's been harmonising the standard with the ISO standard, as well as the Australian standard and the ISO standard being harmonised. And also looking at changing the test methods required. So the requirement to have sidewall or reinforced clips may be dropped out of the special regs when this new standard gets released, because the new standard will have different requirements. So therefore, if these clips come through and they don't have sidewall protection, but they still pass the standard, I believe we would have to start looking at accepting them. So there may be changes in this area when the new standard gets released, but I mean, new standards being released could take 2 years. So just, watch this space. It may well change. So if we just step forward from here, Mel, we just got the standard, some of the pictures that we've all seen about what these tethers look like and how they can fail. Go to 17. The next slide, please, Mel. From being one of the things about being on this technical committee or this review committee for Australian standards, we found that there's been a lot of failures of clips, and like obviously not many of them resulted in loss of life, but there's been quite a lot of failures of clips that have existed. So it's a non-trivial thing, this failure. So it's still trying to advise people to go to new, stronger clips because it's far safer and they're a lot easier to use, because I don't know whether anyone's been out there trying to been out there using the new clips or the newer style clips, but I mean, they're far easier to get on and off the jack stays. Just go to the next one now. All right, these are just, obviously, we've seen these pictures before. Okay, just keep going through. Sorry, just zip back one, please. Just jump back. Yeah, having a shackle or not a shackle, having a clip at snap shackle. Sorry, at one end has never been part of the special regs. But you will see these because cruising boats still use them and they can still buy them, but they're not part of the special regs, and you've got to have 3 clips, not a snap shackle and clip. So just be aware that that's never been in the special regs. All righty, now we can jump forward, please, Mel. Fire extinguishers. There is OAs of asking for, at times are asking for, so organising authorities at times are asking for fire extinguishers to be tested by a competent person in order to be accepted, but it is only a recommendation that fire extinguishers are tested by a trained person or a competent person. And there's no rules anywhere regarding, there's rules that are involved with the housing industry and the building industry where fire extinguishers actually needed to be tested by a competent trained person. But for recreational use and other uses, there is no rules or no legislation saying that these have to be tested. So the advice here is just to make sure that we inspect them, make sure there's no corrosion, standard sort of things, no corrosion, the thing's up in its pressure level in the blue, in the green zone on the gauge. Make sure that they themselves check them on a regular basis, 6 monthly, pick them out, tip them upside down, make sure the powder moves. And that's really, from an auditor's point of view, where we could stop. Again, if an organising authority wants them to be tested by an outside person, that's their call. So, but it's not necessary from a point of view of auditing. I'm going through this fairly quickly, I know. Okay, next one, please, Mel. Medical kits. Okay, so there's been significant change in the medical kits. the actual new medical kits don't come into effect until 2028. Boats are in the position where they could switch over to the new kit today if they wanted to. You'll find some will, some won't. But the new medical kit, what we have done to allow for for boats that transfer to the new kit is we left the forms as they are at this point in time, and we've made up an addendum form or addendum forms, which we attach to the back of we're going to bring that up. It's actually, yeah, which can be filled out and attached to the back of the audit form. Hang on, we're just bringing up the form for you to look at. Okay, now the medical kits are build-up kits. So there's 4 kits, which are in fact 3 kits when you look at them more whereabouts is it? Oh, there we go. So it says that there is 4 kits, but the kit A and B basically join together to form the coastal kit. So the kit A is just a subset of kit B in reality. So can we just bring up one of the forms, Mel? We'll bring up, yeah. All right, so the form's basically the same structure as our current auditing forms, and it's just limited to the requirements for each specific kit. So if you come across a boat that's switched to the new kits, it's just a matter of printing out the additional form, or hopefully they've printed out the additional form and checked off all the bits, and we just will staple it to the back of the current kit. We are considering a slight change to the audit form to maybe have some way of indicating that the addendum has been attached to the back of the sheet, so that you just leave the medical kit part on the form blank and just attach this bit. So, but we are considering maybe editing the form to put something in there to help in this respect, so you can find the kit that's been modified. Now, the new medical kit is substantially different from the existing kit. Again, if they want to put, like, if you look at it closely, there's nothing in there for masks, etc. If they want to carry masks, no one's going to stop them. Okay, so it doesn't matter if they've got more stuff in the kit. It's just these are the things that they are expected to have in the kit. There's one particular notable inclusion is this Israeli emergency bandage, or an equivalent, which is really replacing the use of crepe bandages. If you have a look, there's a good video on them, and they're quite a versatile piece of kit. I think they're around about $30, but I don't think people will complain too much about it. But I mean, that's one of the major changes. Apart from that, most of the medicines and stuff in there are very similar. One of the things, when we get up to the offshore kit, which is the kit 4, that's it there. There's things in here that we need to have special medical training to be able to use. So the courses, there are a couple around for ship's medics, and I'm hoping that we get a better development on those coming through. But there is things in there, injectable drugs and stuff like that. So they need to have a higher, can't just have a first aider. They need to have someone a little bit higher up than that. So the courses for that there are a couple around, and I think there might be a few more being prepared. So let's hopefully that space is good by 2028. All right. What else was there in there? I think I've covered everything. All righty. Okay. We can step forward a bit further to the age-old companionway hatches.
Chris, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you there, and I apologise. Phil touched briefly on the updated declaration wording, but not stating that it was about being able, that's all right, about being able to sign off the form, and that it is complete except for these particular parts that might need to be re-inspected, but they only need to be re-inspected by somebody, another auditor. That's all that the new auditor needs to be checking off, because the original auditor is happy with the below items. So we have actually updated that wording to reflect that, what Phil was talking about earlier.
That's actually on all forms. So
all the forms. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of us have been doing it for a long time, so it just recognises what we've been doing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Okay. Just back on companionways, we're still having, I don't know about you guys, but I still see it every other day, I think. The companionway hatch with people locking them, there's many boats out there still without decent systems. Barn doors, again, still there, which we got to stop people from having and give them a good reason for why not to have barn doors. Mainly, because they're low silt. I have been finding that a lot of boats coming around with barn doors on them at the moment, or Dutch doors, or whatever we want to call them, they actually have enough room between the hinge on the door and the front of the hatch when they're open to be able to slide a stormboard into. So a lot of boats with these Dutch doors may actually be able to resolve their problems just by cutting a stormboard that will fit into the gap. So if you just have a look at it on boats, you'll find that most of them have enough space in there to actually be able to drop a stormboard in. So it's not the end of the world just because they've got Dutch doors or barn doors or whatever we want to call them, that they want to be able to go into Cat 1 and 2 races, etc. So, but there are solutions, and it doesn't require them changing the doors. The one we have again also about locking, the use of a key to lock the companionway hatch. I just went in because it's actually a RMS rule that says you can't lock the companionway hatch while the boat's underway. And I just use that now. I don't even go any further. I just say you can't use a lock because it's against RMS. So it's not even really part of the special regs. It's an RMS ruling that says not to use keys to lock doors. So I've just actually cut straight out of the legislation and plugged it in here so that if anyone wants to see it, there it is. So it's in black and white. So RMS has legislation that says we can't. So not the best solution, but it can be worked. So just kept on go to another working solution. We go forward. Whitworth's currently, which I know it's Whitworth's, currently have a latch in stock. So there'll be other places will have this type of latch in stock, which can be opened from inside and out, and is relatively easily fixed. So you can direct them to your local chandlery, and they hopefully can pick up a catch that looks very similar to this one. So and this suits what we need for resolving the problems. Again, cutting a big hole for your hand to go in and out is a reasonable way to solve the problem as well. So they can do that. If we keep going forward. All right, and that's me done. And Shane's not here, but Phil, you want to talk to Shane stuff?
I might just step in very briefly. Shane stepped in and he talked for about 15 minutes in the session last week at Middle Harbour. I won't try and replicate what he said, but he was talking about the role of the National Safety Committee, how he sees it working and his experience and why it's important, and also took a bit of time to thank the auditors for their time and dedication in helping there. Probably the key thing I'd like to say, which I think you probably know already, is if changes to the Blue Book, to the special regulations, are made by Australian Sailing on the recommendation of the National Safety Committee. Any of us can make recommendations and make submissions to them if we think it's a strong enough. I think Melanie, they're going to be through yourself or through Glenn Stanoy to get that done. And the National Safety Committee will recommend those, and they make recommendations to Australian Sailing. They don't decide, but they do make the recommendations. So if there's anything you particularly think should be improved, and the special regs aren't perfect, then by all means make those submissions. But so that brought us to the end. At that stage, we opened up for questions. It was a fairly lively meeting. There were around about 47 people there last week, so it was quite a good meeting. A lot of faces I recognised, and also I took the opportunity, which I should have done at the start of this, is to thank you all for your commitment and your time in helping our sport go ahead. Without you guys as special regs auditors, it wouldn't happen. And one of our problems is we all, like most of us, are getting older and greyer, and we need to recruit some younger people and some new people in there. They should be people with experience, but they should also be people who can have enough experience in there to be reasonable and to help skippers and to help people in charge be ready for major races and major cruises as well. Okay, Mel, I'll pass back to you. Do we have questions?
We do. Thank you, Matt. We've got one question here. He does say, asks size of lifelines for synthetic cable, and that is actually listed in the special regulations.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris might be, with his maths brain, he might be able to tell us off the top of his head, or I could
can't remember what
go
it is
hunting,
off the top.
See who can win.
Can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I think it's 5 mil. So
let's have a look, because it is with the table with the wire.
Yep, pretty certain it's 5 mil. Just got it there.
I'm going to make you all dizzy, I'm sorry, as I flick through here.
This goes.
No.
Just talking about what Phil was saying too before, while we find this, we did, for instance, we've had a recent submission from a club in reality wanting to change the diameter of lifeline wire, which went through the system and went to the National Safety Committee and was spoken to, and the decision was made. So, and then relayed back to the people who made the submission. So it's not just a committee that talks and does nothing. So it's worthwhile if you have something to submit it and put it through the system. But it's not something, we can't change it immediately. There we go, 4 and 5 mil. So I'm pretty good at making things up.
I'm not the numbers person.
The other thing with changes is I get a call probably during the auditing season, probably once a week, asking people for special dispensations to change things, which of course I can't do. But what I generally advise them is the organising authority can put their own requirements on and can change these. But if they do that, then something goes wrong. Obviously, the responsibility is on them. So that's generally what I tell people. So if they really feel about something, they can put it in their in the notice of race. But if they're stepping outside the standards or outside the special regs and something goes wrong, they've got a lot of explaining to do.
And we do get organising authorities ask for variations to the special regulations as well. And that's another process that has to come through as a document through, as you said, Phil, either myself or Glenn. We take that to the National Safety Committee, robust discussion ensues, research, etc. And it's either a yay or nay. So there is a process for all of these.
And while I'm at it too, one other thing we mentioned last week, there's a few classes around in the Sydney 38s, I think, definitely the FAR 40s have their own audit forms for when they're racing as a class against each other. I regularly get people turn up with those audit forms and say, my boat's a FAR 40, it's not necessarily, it doesn't need to comply with this because look at my form there. And the answer is that only applies if you're racing in a class race against other FAR 40s. If you're in a fixed fleet, you've got to comply with the full requirements as per the special regulations. So I probably some of you get that. I get that fairly regularly myself.
Same with the Etchels.
Okay. Etchels, yeah.
Yeah.
And Adams 10s.
Matt is our Adams 10s up here in Queensland have got lifelines. So
yeah.
Matt is also typing again.
Yep, that's good. Just on the clubs modifying the equipment auditing forms, we've have a club not that long ago who diligently went and grabbed one of our past old forms and went and diligently changed it for their new stuff. And then consequently what happened is boats showed up for the race and on new forms and stuff on their new form wasn't on the old form. So there was some major dramas happen. So it's really imperative that you try and impress on clubs not to modify the forms because they're not supposed to do it. So.
All right, so Matt's next question is a mobile phone with Navionics suitable as the backup with what about as a main system? Now, there is actually a line in the special regulations that puts that question back on the person in charge. It's, is it a suitable, what do they feel is fit for purpose? So if your person in charge or boat owner feels that that's mobile phone is fit for purpose, how about it?
Yeah, and just to add further to that, the only like a mobile phone obviously can carry Navionics, but I mean a dedicated device would be a better choice, like a handheld GPS with charts in it is much, much better device because it's going to last longer on batteries as well, because mobile phones have a tendency to want to try and find themselves a mobile phone signal, and they also do rely on differential GPS more. So just, yeah, so mobile phone's not the best choice, but I mean, it is a alternative backup choice, but never a main choice.
That says here, backup electronic chart system can be handheld. Yeah, and we do have a paper on this available as well. And on that, there is, you might be aware, in the back of the special regulations, there's an addendum that goes much further into all the new equipment in the medical kit as well.
Yep.
Has anybody else got any questions for us? Nope, nobody's typing. You've done well, boys. You've answered all the things.
Spoke too fast.
We did speak quite fast, and we got through a lot quicker than last week when we were in front of people.
Yeah.
So if any of you have got questions on any of that, definitely feel free to email me or to ring me if you've got my phone number. I'm quite happy to talk anytime, or anytime I'm available.
Actually, there's one thing we were speaking about before, about if there's ever a dispute, the idea would be, if there was someone who's disputing what you're doing and you're not comfortable to sign it, my recommendation would be go grab another auditor and both of you go back to the boat and have a discussion on what should be done. Or like, for instance, if you have a chief auditor at your club or someone like that, just go back along to this boat with the chief auditor or whoever you're classifying as being your expert, so that you come to a unilateral decision on whether it should be had or it should be done or not. So if you knew someone else had audited a boat and then they asked you to come and adjudicate or do something on it, just try and bring the original auditor with you so that they can discuss reasons for why it happened. Just as a courtesy more than anything.
I've been involved in a couple of disputes that have gone all the way up to Australian sailing, where the people were adamant that what they did comply. And my response to that is, okay, pass it up the line, but life's too short to get involved in arguments like that. Just pass it on. Don't get the fights with the owners.
Yeah.
And Phil, I'm not quite sure if everybody's aware, we do have the National Safety Committee, but we do have the Senior National Equipment Auditors. So we have more than one Phil around the nation, and we get all the Phils together, and they'll actually bring the questions that they've had in their state to that particular meeting as well and discuss it at that level. So I do know that Phil and the other SNEAs talk quite often. So your question can actually help somebody else in another state as well. So I've had Stephen ask, HPME Lifeline's oversized, say 6 mil, is incredibly strong. So if you lose 50% and it's still incredibly strong, and does the strength loss plateau? Goodness me, Stephen, it's 7:15 at night time. That's very intense.
And to your answer there, I can tell you it does flatten out around about the 2 years. So it does hold on. So it's really, once you start getting past the 2 years, it's really wear and tear that starts to be the biggest problem. So it's really looking at wear and tear and like things ripping the strands apart. So again, it probably will last longer than that, especially if they're using oversized stuff, because 50% is probably still stronger than it needed to be. But wear and tear becomes a problem after 2 years. That's just me looking at what we have to do with Dyneema when we use it. We change it quite regularly, mainly because of wear and tear.
Excellent.
That answers it, I hope. Thank you.
All right. Do we have? Stephen's typing. He says.
No.
Very good. Thanks, Stephen. All right, well, we might leave it there, everyone. You've all got my email address from my many panicked emails I sent you last Thursday. Thank you for your patience. And also, Phil and Chris. So if you've got any questions, everybody's more than happy to help. And as Phil said, if you've got an idea of how we could better the special regulations, let me know. There's a form and a process, and I can send that through to you. Like I said, this is being recorded and I will make it available to everybody. Not quite sure how and where yet, but we'll certainly make it available for the people that weren't able to join tonight. So thank you very much, everybody. And I'll actually be in Sydney at the end of the year, so I might get to, Matt, to get to meet you, some of you.
Who's letting you come to Sydney?
My boat owner.
Thanks.
All right, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Bye all.